Hello, everyone. My name is Manas Chawla, and I'm the founder and CEO of London Politica. And today I have the real honor of being joined by Arancha González. She's the Dean of the Paris School of International Affairs, part of Sciences Po, and she used to be the Minister of Foreign Affairs for Spain between 2020 and 2021. Thank you so much for taking the time and for joining us.
A real pleasure.
So you've attended the Bled Strategic Forum for the better part of a day and a half, and we've seen quite a few crowded panels. Is there one theme that really stood out to you?
Well, there is the theme of accession of the Western Balkans to the European Union, which has to do with the geopolitics of Europe, right? How can the EU be stronger geopolitically if it doesn't incorporate the neighbors, if it's not capable of sorting this long term objective that it has of enlarging towards the east
Yeah.
to cover the Western Balkans, and now, obviously, beyond that, Ukraine. Moldova, and perhaps one day Georgia. So this is a theme that is the, let's say, local declination of geopolitical troubles in a world that is in turmoil.
Sure. I mean, we had the leaders panel, which I thought, very diplomatically touched on that point
Mm-hmm.
through the different leaders' perspectives, and it's a very complicated situation, especially in the Western Balkans. When you heard their speeches, uh, were there any surprises to you?
I don't think there is any surprise. I think we know the EU knows that it has to take this quantum leap of um, starting the procedure to accept new members in the European Union.
Yeah.
And it knows, the European Union knows that that requires changes in the manner in which the EU operates, and changes in the manner in which the EU finances its
Right.
policies, and changes in the policies themselves. And the countries in the Western Balkans and Ukraine and Moldova, and as I said, one day Georgia, they know that becoming a member of the European Union is not just joining a club, is um, being part of a union that is based on a set of values,
Mm-hmm.
whether on the economy, whether it's on the democracy, or whether it's on social issues. So they know they also have to do their own homework, but they want to do it because they feel this is the best they can do for their citizens. And the EU knows that it has to do this because this is the best the EU can do to be a stronger player in a more geopolitical world.
Absolutely. I want to pick apart sort of your your background a little bit because you've been at the intersection of you've been in international organizations like the WTO, you've been part of a government
Mhm.
leading foreign affairs, and now you're sort of in academia. Seeing international affairs from these three different perspectives, we've seen a lot of talk in this conference about the emerging multilateral order or the decay of the current one. What do you make of that? What should people be worried about?
So I think the problem we have is a world that is transforming. It's transforming in a big way on the economic side, with technology changing a lot of the way in which the economy works, with the world of jobs also changing, with more unilateralism being used. I mean, even central bankers can't make, uh, can't see clearly what this huge economic transformation means and how to deal with it. There is also a huge geopolitical turmoil. The world has become much more driven by power as opposed than by norms. World is becoming more hostile. Um, and there are changes also on the democratic side.
Mm-hmm.
There is democratic backsliding, both in democracies and in autocracies, with citizens wanting to be and wanting to have a greater say in the decisions that impact them, but with the old processes and mechanisms not being sufficient for that. There is a big change in the manner in which power is distributed internationally, and these huge transformations need to be in a way reflected in some sort of international order, quote unquote, in an international system that has procedures, mechanisms, rules that will help countries navigate those turbulences with more serenity, probably with
Mm-hmm.
more stability, uh, probably with better common prosperity. But this is not the case because the transformations, some of which we don't yet fully grasp are not yet transformed into a change in the international system. And this is the tension that we see, and this is why we see some of the international processes and cooperation mechanisms that we have being a bit stretched
Yeah.
under pressure from all these transformations, and governments who are today the stakeholders of all these international organizations not being in a position to change these organizations in the short term.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of people watching this that you might be best positioned to advise, given that you're the dean of one of the leading schools of international affairs. I mean, what would you say to a young person who's, maybe in university studying politics or international affairs right now and wants to one day, join the UN, the WTO, become Minister of Foreign Affairs in Spain? What's the actionable advice you give them?
I mean, I think I want to, and this is precisely what I do in Sciences Po, in the Paris School of International Affairs, is reclaim the value of international cooperation. The narrative that we have around us, the manner in which we are portraying the world is in binary terms, is in confrontational terms, is in this against this, the West against the rest, the West and the global South, the North and the South, the East and the West, China and the US. It's all in confrontational terms. And we are not giving diplomacy, we are not giving international cooperation, dialogue, discussion, the space that it requires in order to help us ballast all these forces, buffer against all these tensions. So my big message is whether you're a student of international affairs, or you're an actor in business, or you're an actor in civil society, in NGOs, whether you are in a consultancy or whether you are a citizen, we need to reclaim the value of international cooperation, of dialogue. It doesn't mean that you have to agree. I don't have to agree with you, but we have to have a channel open, because if we don't have that, the risk that we face an accident, an unwanted accident, and we have lots of issues out there that are very prone to an accident, from nuclear to pandemics to the exacerbated impact of climate change on all of us. So cooperation, cooperation, cooperation. Don't buy this idea that you have to retrench, that you have to isolate, that all you have to do is exercise your unilateral power. Don't buy that.
Absolutely. Sometimes I might just add, it seems to me that the sort of framing of international affairs as a, purely dichotomous,
Mm-hmm.
antagonistic, is very much a remnant of the Cold War, and
Yeah.
sometimes often sort of a Eurocentric conception of these things. When I look at the global South, I see countries pursuing a foreign policy that at its core is pragmatic, where they find each other to be sort of strategic rivals, but also at the same time strategic partners, where India and China, despite their many tensions, will speak to each other at every BRICS summit. And I think there's maybe something to be picked up from there. But that leaves us a lot to think about for the future ahead. Dean Gonzalez, thank you so much for taking the time and your insight.
Thank you, Manas. But let me tell you, this disease of antagonizing is not just a European disease. It's
Yes.
much more spread
Yes.
than we think. But let's fight against that.
Absolutely. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you.